had been invaded by the Gauls, the people who spoke Celtic. And when the English, what is today English, is basically coastal German tribes, the Angles and the Saxons. Well, here, the Saxonia is here. I mean, Saxon is here. And now you have Anglo-Saxon, that's there. So these are German tribes.
They come from England.
Yes, they come all in. Now the English come from here, from these tribes. So some of the tribes that are known as Saxon actually managed to cross into the British Isles, which were then inhabited mainly by Celtic-speaking people, and who had already overrun the older population, who were Pictic speakers, and we don't even know what Pictic is. It's maybe a language that is not Indo-European. Pictic, yes. And the Picts is also a name for the people in Scotland. So the people who were living in England were pushed away to the extremes, which is to this day the case. The Germanic speakers who invaded England caught all of England, which is Anglo land. The land of the Angles is also a continental tribe, and the original, or the earlier invaders, the Celts, or the Celts, were pushed into areas known today as Scotland, which is in the periphery, Wales, which is in the periphery, Cornwall, Manx, and Ireland. They were all pushed away, and the body of the country is now firmly in the hands of Germanic speakers. But they never completely eradicated all the older speakers. They absorbed them and caused the language to change. English basically is Germanic, continental Germanic, spoken by people who are not continental Germans. So that's in a nutshell. But what you see here is, first here it sums up a couple of features, like the word for I is in German, Low German ich, in Upper German ich, and in English the ch even twisted into y, I.
So I am.
I am. They use one letter for it, but you're actually two sounds, and the first is the reflection of the I, and the second is the reflection of the ch. So
right.
Is I. And then but you have many of that. You have night is nicht. You will still even see it in the writing. But so whenever there are too many letters in English, it's actually a shadow of what it was, which brings it much closer to the continental form. So you have book, bok. It is a bok in Low German.
Okay.
Buch in High German, book in English, and book in Dutch. So Dutch is one step further towards English than all these German dialects are.
So which one was the origin? Origin was the book or the buch?
No. In fact, the original was with a hard K, book. And Upper German went through a sound shift, as it's called, the High German sound shift, that caused the k to turn into ch. And here you see another example. Here you see a strange effect that Low German Bach, Upper German Bach. Bach. Well, actually, the famous composer Bach is actually after a Dutch word beek and an English word brook. It's a small river. But the word is in Low German Bach, and Upper German it's Bach. But they're now quoting a word that has two changes, also a b to a p. But essentially everything is very closely related, and in this larger system, when you take the whole dialect continuum that makes up Germanic and compare it to the next door dialect continuum that we know as Slavic, which contains Russian, Polish and all these languages, you can on a deeper level again discover this kind of differences between the whole group of German and the whole group of Slavic. If you extend that again into Iranian, the whole Iranian group internally has the same phenomena, but as a whole group they are related to Germanic and Slavic and so on. Now that's called the Indo-European linguistic relationship. Now if you focus in on this small area, you see an interesting map. Here they take it reads like a phrase. It says, I make village that apple pound. But these are actually sample words, and these words are technically known as isoglosses. These are words that you take to measure the characteristics of the area.
Okay.
So if you go then in Low German, there are areas where they say ik, maken, ik is I, maken, dorp, which is thorp in English. So then the English is very
totally different than village. So
no. Village is a Latin borrowing, but the original English word is thorp, which is very close to dorp.
Okay.
There are still many places in English that have a place name that ends in thorp, which is simply like Little Thorpe, a small village. And little is also a Dutch word. So little dorp, little thorpe. They're really very close. What makes English appear so different is that it absorbed huge amounts of local Celtic, and it was later overrun again by French, the nomadic invasions, and that imposed a lot of Latin-like words. It's like Persian, which is very closely related to Sanskrit, but it's no longer recognizable because it was invaded with Arabic words. Every abstract concept in Persian is an Arabic word, and it no longer connects with Indian, so you lose the Indo-European structure that Persian really has. But words like mother, dochter, brother, like we have broeder in Dutch, Bruder in German, and Brother in Persian. Here you see how these words still connect over these huge distances. You have Tochter, Tochter in German, Dochter in Dutch, daughter in English, where they write Dochter but they say daughter. That is the Celtic effect. And Dochter in Persian. So that these words still retain their original forms over an enormous distance and time.
Wow.
And that shows that the relationship exists. Because there's nothing like it in Arabic or in Turkish. In Turkish it's kız, in Arabic it is bint. So there's no relation there. Now you have that is dat. You can already see the system. Appel is appel. Apple is apple. And then pound is punt. So the top line is the closest one to English, and one line up, which I left out, and that is strange, the borderline thinking. Dutch is included in the system, so if you add one line on top, it's ik, maken, dorp, dat, appel, pond. So the only difference is that we're one step more close to English in this particular example.
And the single D at the end, you said we don't pronounce it D.
No, it's lightened to, it's made voiceless. Then if you go one line down, ik becomes ich. So there are areas where the ik, the ge effect already takes place. Maken, dorp, dat, appel, punt. Then one more, ik machen, dorp, dat, appel, punt. Then ich machen, dorf. Now the P becomes F. Dat, appel, punt. Then you go, and that's the more you get away geographically from the Dutch border, the more of these changes occur. Then you have ich machen dorf das. Dat becomes das. Appel, punt. Then one more down, ich machen dorf das Apfel, punt. And where you are in Berlin, it's all the way on the other end of the country. You're somewhere here. And so we are moving through the German plains, and then you are in an area where they say ich machen dorf das Apfel, punt. Although you will find that in the actual Berlin dialect there are many low Germanisms. The actual spoken, the difference between the local dialect and the supposed classical or standard language, the standard language is completely like the lower line. But there are many fluctuations in between, so this is only explained by the paradigm of dialect continuum.
You said how they choose these words because it mapped it very smartly.
So well, first linguists became aware of this particular phenomenon. Linguists have been misled for ages by thinking in nationalities and races and all sorts of things. So they try to think of Dutch is for the Dutch, German is for the Germans, and Persian is for the Persians. These are political artificial borders, and the reality is more of a biological nature. So you have a mass of speakers of related languages, and as they start to organize them with different cultural focuses, the education for my country, there are spectacular examples. There are border towns that are actually flowing into each other. Everybody is related, but there's a line in between, which makes one half German and the other half Dutch. All the children get a letter to go to school. The one on the Dutch side of the border are told to go to the Dutch school, the ones on the German side of the border. Now the Dutch school gets all its instructions and its books from the central government. So, and it sends only in books that use the standard language. The standard language is based on this area. So on the German border, everybody who grows up there is his language education is tweaked towards the west. Just around 10, 20 meters further on, the guy who is his cousin is sent to a school that tweaks his usage to the bottom line, so from the top to the bottom. So someone who lives in the middle, one is educated with all his examples to the top, and one is educated with all his examples to the bottom. And that creates an enormous, gradually built in an enormous national awareness to the extremes that during World War II, the boy who lived 20 meters across the border on the German side got a military service call out, became part of the Nazi army and invaded the Netherlands. And by the way, one of the ideas the Germans had was that it would be very easy to absorb Holland into Germany because they were basically Germans from that perspective. But this map is amusing because it portrays the Netherlands as something that is not part of Germany, which is politically correct, but the book is about the world's major languages. And it should have focused on the language distribution.
So wait, before we go, you said how they choose these words finally? Because they wanted to be smart, not to be bounded by the political borders?
Well, they investigated all the local dialects and discovered that these dialects are gradually changing their features until they become unrecognizably different. But they simply selected a series of words that are typical representatives of the phenomenon.
But if we go with the adjectives, it's kind of like I see a verb, I see a noun, I see a name.
But they took it probably in a way that it almost builds into a sentence.
I see.
But they're basically focusing on
checking all these different aspects.
What you really see is here is the K in final position and the K in middle position. So K in final position turns into G sooner than K in middle position. That's what I'm seeing. And then and then P in final position turns into F, T in final position turns into S, and P in middle position turns into P. So P in final position into F, and in middle position into P. And then P in initial position in the distance. So it's not the
PF in English they say F. They don't pronounce P.
Yeah, but in German they say P. But there are no English words with PF. There are English words
like the last name Pfeiffer. It's Pfeiffer.
Okay, but Pfeiffer is a name based on this German dialect, and the same name exists in Dutch. It's originally Pfeiffer, and the Dutch distant relation of the name is Pijper. And it would be piper in English, like the man who pipes.
Yeah, luleke.
Yeah, but it is simply a man whose tribe picked up the name in an area that was characterized by these isoglosses. So Pfeiffer is an isogloss that immediately reveals that the man originally comes from this area.
Well, they say isogloss with this thing.
What?
Isogloss, you said?
Yeah. So Pfeiffer happens to be an isogloss that identifies the background of this man from this area. And the English cognate of Pfeiffer is Piper. But the English language doesn't have provisions to allow F to happen in initial position, and immediately the speakers round it off to Pfeiffer. But that has nothing. That says something about. But yeah, that says something about the constraints of English. There is a word in Greek that is psychologia, which is psychology, because English doesn't allow the initial cluster of ps either. So they write it. So the writing still betrays the origin of the word, but the pronunciation moves away from that. And English is actually one big marshland of divergencies between spellings and pronunciations, which in a way, in English, the most provocative texts. For instance, yesterday we were in a conference which was completely in English, and they were talking about the need to simplify everything, and everything was expressed in a language that doesn't simplify fucking anything. And all these people have been struggling to master English in writing and in speech, to discuss other languages' requirements to simplify, which is, of course, an absurd irony.
I see. Wow. Enough for now.